All right, we are recording. Good morning, everyone. This morning we have Emma Harte joining us. She is serving with Clean River Partners as a Minnesota GreenCorps member for this current service term. She is an environmental education and outreach professional who is committed to connecting people with science, nature, and the outdoors. She has held positions with Cornell Outdoor Education, Outward Bound, and Eagle Bluff Environmental Learning Center. Emma holds an environmental education certificate from Hamline University and also a BA in biological sciences from Cornell. Thank you for joining us this morning, Emma. The floor is yours.
Yeah, thanks for the introduction, Katie. The title of my talk this morning is Clean River Rangers, Empowering Students to Take Action for Clean Water. And in this talk, I'll share a little bit of an introduction to myself, to the Minnesota GreenCorps program that I'm a part of, and to my host site, Clean River Partners. I'll explain the Clean River Rangers program and what some of our goals for it are, how we evaluated those goals, and what the outcomes were. And in the picture on the right here, you'll see some students participating in Clean River Rangers. This is a classroom outreach program, and typically we do it indoors, but this was a school that focuses on nature-based learning, so that's why this picture shows students outside. So I'll start off with an introduction to myself. I got into the field of environmental education and outreach more through outdoor education. And I'll add that these kind of descriptors on the top of the screen here are loosely applied to the jobs that I have in the pictures, but really I've been doing all three of those in all of the jobs I'll talk about. I started off at Cornell Outdoor Education teaching outdoor PE classes for college students. So things like backpacking, cross-country skiing, focused on developing connection to and appreciation for nature and the outdoors. And then I continued this work at Hurricane Island Outward Bound School in Maine, leading extended wilderness expeditions, so backpacking and canoeing courses for teens. I wanted to bring a bit more of my science background into this work, so I transitioned more into environmental education by completing an environmental education fellowship at Eagle Bluff Environmental Learning Center. This is a nature center in Lanesboro, Minnesota, so in the southeastern corner of the state. And through this program, I got a really strong foundation in teaching and environmental ed because it's a teaching and learning program. So I was both teaching classes for students on field trips and then taking graduate level classes through Hamline University that go towards a certificate in environmental education. After completing the fellowship at Eagle Bluff, I stayed on 2 years there as an educator, and then I came to Clean River Partners through Minnesota GreenCorps. And in the picture on the right here, you'll see me with another GreenCorps member at a volunteer event helping to protect trees from winter deer browse. This is an example of some of the work I've done through GreenCorps at Clean River Partners, and I'll talk a little bit more in the next few slides about what else I've worked on. Minnesota GreenCorps is an AmeriCorps program coordinated by the MPCA. So AmeriCorps is a federal program and a year of service, and this one is Minnesota specific and focused on sustainability. The goal of Minnesota GreenCorps is to preserve and protect Minnesota's environment while training a new generation of environmental professionals. And through this program, there are 58 members that are serving with host sites across the state. So this could be things like nonprofits, like where I serve, or state agencies, city government, tribal nations, or school districts. Members are serving in 11-month service term, starting in the fall, and the GreenCorps members as part of this program are broken up into 4 different topic areas, depending on what area of sustainability they're focused on. So in the picture on the left here, I'm shown with a group of the stormwater and forestry topic area as part of GreenCorps, and my work fits into this area because I'm focused on stormwater education and outreach. And this is all of us at a conference earlier this spring. Given that GreenCorps is both a service and a professional development program geared towards early career professionals, we have 20% of our time reserved for professional development and a $600 professional development budget that we can use to attend trainings or earn certifications or conferences. One of the ways that I used this budget was attending a networking event. So in the picture on the right here, I'm with some other Green Corps members at the Women's Environmental Network annual event in Minnesota. And I chose to use some of my professional development budget on networking since I'm newer to the state and wanted to strengthen my connections in the metro area. I've also used it to attend conferences and trainings, things that allow me to bring back some of that knowledge to the work I'm doing at my host site. Another benefit of GreenCorps is that 6% of our time is reserved for what's called civic engagement or volunteering outside of our host site. The primary way that I've used this time through my GreenCorps term is volunteering with the Northfield Earth Day Committee, which is pictured on the left here. And I decided to join this committee because I had not lived or worked in Northfield, let alone even been there before I started my GreenCorps service term. And working in community engagement, I wanted to learn more about what people in Northfield were concerned about regarding the environment and what sorts of environmental action people were already taking. So working on this committee using my civic engagement hours was a really great way to do that, and also allowed my host site to engage with the community in a way that we might not have had the funds or the staff time to do otherwise. So in that way, GreenCorps can help a host site build its capacity and expand its reach. Another way that I use my civic engagement hours that helped expand upon my host site's programming was giving a presentation for student naturalists at St. Olaf College on careers in the environmental field for early career professionals. So something, again, that my host site would not have been able to do if they weren't hosting a Green Corps member who had this time allotted for volunteering outside of our organization. The host site that I'm serving at is called Clean River Partners, and this is a nonprofit working across the Cannon River watershed. Our mission is to inspire people and organizations to value, protect, and improve the Cannon River watershed's land and water. We were originally founded in 1990 as the Cannon River Watershed Partnership, so you may recognize that name. And although we have a new name now, we are doing largely the same work through 3 different program areas. The first one that I'll touch on is habitat protection, so helping landowners to protect their land for future generations. We also work in the conservation agriculture space, connecting farmers with the resources that they need to implement more sustainable agricultural practices. And then finally, community engagement, which is the department that my service as part of GreenCorps falls into. And the goal of this department is to understand community needs and engage with people around water issues through things like community events or classroom outreach. We do this work across the Cannon River watershed, and I've included a map here for those who might be located out of the area and less familiar with it. This watershed is south of the metro, and it includes cities like Northfield, Faribault, Owatonna, and Red Wing. It's primarily agricultural, so over 70% of the land in this watershed is used for agriculture, which presents some challenges with things like runoff and nutrient pollution and erosion. Another notable feature of this watershed is that there are some karst regions, largely in the northeast area. So these areas, or the springs that are one karst feature, are represented by yellow stars on this map here. And for those who are less familiar with this type of geography, karst regions contain limestone that's easily dissolved to form features like springs or sinkholes or caves, things that form when water is dissolving rock underground. And this presents challenges for drinking water because the surface water can enter the groundwater very quickly and often without being filtered first. Some other notable features of our watershed: it contains the Big Woods ecosystem, which is an important habitat to protect here in Minnesota. And there's also a lot of lakes and rivers. You'll see there's many lakes in the western area here in the map. There's lots of opportunities for fishing and recreating, things like that. So essentially, there's a lot of challenges with water in this region, given the heavy agricultural use and the issues with drinking water due to karst geology. And there's also a lot of people who really care about the water in this area. There's many people who farm and fish the land and recreate on the lakes who care a lot about protecting it. The cities where we run Clean River Rangers, this program where we're teaching kids to care for and protect our water, are marked on this map here, so mostly Northfield and Faribault. Leading these classroom outreach programs are one of my projects that I've been working on for GreenCorps. And I also have a variety of other responsibilities in the community engagement department at Clean River Partners through my GreenCorps position. So I have led 2 of our classroom outreach programs, as well as some other community events that I've coordinated, like in the bottom left here, there's a photo of me leading a rain barrel building workshop for community members at Northfield Earth Day. I also coordinate our outdoor volunteer program where we connect volunteers with opportunities for volunteer work at local land management organizations that have some sort of need for help managing their land. So we bring a group of volunteers and help them fill that need. And in the top right here is a photo of a prairie restoration event that I organized at St. Olaf this spring. With the classroom outreach programs that I've worked on, I've also spent a lot of my time as a GreenCorps member on program evaluation and curriculum development. So applying the results or the data that we got from evaluation to make these programs better for the future. And then the last responsibility that I have as part of my GreenCorps position is some communications. So writing things like newspaper articles or social media posts. I'll dive a little deeper into Clean River Rangers, so this classroom outreach program that we run at Clean River Partners. This program is sponsored by 3 cities in southeastern Minnesota, the cities of Northfield, Faribault, and Owatonna. And these cities contract with Clean River Partners to help them meet outreach and education requirements for the Municipal Separate Storm Sewer System, or the MS4 permit. Riverbend Nature Center runs this programming in Faribault. And this program was in its second year in the 2025 to 2026 school year, but it builds off programming that Riverbend was conducting previously as well. And Clean River Partners conducts this programming in Northfield. The city of Owatonna helped to fund this program in the 2025 to 2026 school year. However, unfortunately, working with the city, we are not able to get into the classrooms due to some staffing changes in the school district, but we hope to potentially do so in the future. This program is modeled after the National Park Service Junior Rangers program. So just like kids might visit a national park with their family and get a booklet of activities that they complete while they're there, turn it in and take a pledge and earn a badge, students can do the same thing after they participate in the classroom lesson through our outreach program. This lesson takes place typically in October. And this is something that teachers opt into. So it's completely free to them and it's paid for by the city. And students are doing hands-on activities where they're learning about water pollution. So in this picture here, some students are modeling how water travels through permeable and impermeable surfaces in a watershed using sponges and aluminum trays. After participating in this lesson, students take home a booklet of challenges that they can do at home that kind of have 2 goals. So one would be education, deepening their learning about stormwater. And then the second goal of these challenges would be action, taking some sort of direct action to help protect water in our watershed. And some of these challenges meet both of those goals. Some of them focus more on one or the other. After students complete 6 challenges from the handbook, I come back to their classroom 3 weeks later, usually in November, and conduct a badge ceremony. So in this photo here on the top, you see a student reading out a pledge to their classmates and having them recite it back to kind of swear them in as Clean River Rangers. And after students take this pledge, they're promising to continue the work that they've done to be clean water advocates in their communities. I put some sample pages from the handbook that we give students here so you can get an idea of what it looks like. We have separate handbooks for the 4th and 5th grade programs. 4th graders are participating in a junior Clean River Rangers program, and 5th graders are participating in the kind of full Clean River Rangers program. And they do They cover some more advanced content in the classroom that's reflected in the challenges that they're then asked to do afterwards. Caregivers are initialing each challenge to certify that students have completed it. And we also offer these handbooks in Spanish and Somali as well to meet the language needs of the communities we're reaching in Northfield and Faribault. One of the challenges that students are given the option to do is car washing. So students are challenged to go with a trusted adult to get a car washed at a local facility rather than doing it at home on their driveway. So doing it somewhere where that soapy runoff is going to be able to be treated before it's entering our waterways rather than running directly into a storm drain and then into lakes and rivers. So this is a good example of one of our more action-oriented challenges. The one shown below here, wildlife protection, combines that direct action with education. So students are asked to identify 3 animals living in the Cannon River watershed and ways to keep their habitat healthy. So they're not actually needing to act upon these strategies that they come up with during this handbook, but it's kind of planting the seed for future action. And the final challenge I'll show here is on the right, green areas. For this one, students are drawing a map of their neighborhood and identifying permeable and impermeable surfaces by coloring them in different colors. So this is a more education-oriented challenge, and it's a good example of one where students are really drawing on that background knowledge they learned during that classroom lesson and practicing their vocabulary. So here, permeable and impermeable surfaces. There are 8 challenges that are available in the handbook, and students just have to complete 6 of them in order to earn a badge. So it gives them some options for how they want to meet those requirements. One of the challenges that students have the option to complete, specifically in the city of Northfield, is a poster contest. So students are challenged here to create a PSA or public service announcement style poster that is around some theme related to stormwater. And in 2025 to 2026, we use the theme Stormwater Heroes. This contest is open to 2nd through 5th grade students. So given that the 4th and 5th graders in Northfield are the only ones out of this age group who are participating in the Clean River Rangers program, I offer an optional lesson for 2nd and 3rd graders that teachers can opt into to share some background knowledge about stormwater that students will need to participate in the contest, and then also just kind of generate some excitement about it and get students interested in participating. This year, we decided to couple this contest with the Clean River Rangers program. Previously, we ran Clean River Rangers in the fall and the contest in the spring. But by doing it at the same time and including the poster contest as a challenge that students could complete to earn the badge, we found that it increased the number of entries that we got. So this year we had 170 entries across Northfield compared to about half the number the previous year. And we think that including the poster contest as a challenge in that handbook gave students some extra motivation to complete it. Students who are selected as a winner of the contest have their art displayed in City Hall. So some of the winners are shown on this slide here. And they also get to attend a city council meeting in the winter and be awarded a certificate in front of city council and members of the public, as well as receive some prizes. Some of the goals for this program are focused on student learning objectives for the classroom lesson. So one of those learning objectives is to describe the fates of stormwater once it hits the ground. So does it soak in or does it run off and go down something like a storm drain in this picture here? Another one of our goals is for students to be able to identify common stormwater pollutants such as road salt and how to prevent them, like with smart salting practices. We also hope that students will be able to explain how stormwater behaves in a natural landscape, such as the planted areas in this photo on the bottom here, versus more of a human-made landscape like the sidewalk. And then for 5th graders, our goal is for them to be able to identify different ways to manage stormwater, like the rain barrels in this picture here. And 5th graders accomplish this objective through participating in an activity where they're kind of putting on their city planner hats and they get a imaginary budget that they can use to purchase best management practices such as rain barrels, rain gardens, permeable pavers, and they work together in groups to figure out how they're going to spend that money to improve stormwater in their city. Kind of taking a step back and looking at broader program goals, our goals for Northfield this year were to present to at least 15 classrooms, engage at least 350 students, and we hope that at least 20 of these students would earn a badge. And we set these goals based on the number of classrooms that we reached in the 2024 to 25 school year, which was the first time that we had run this program, knowing that we could expand into more of the Northfield schools and get some higher numbers here. I'll share next how we evaluated some of these goals. The first way that we did this chronologically was student assessment. So when instructors visit a classroom for Clean River Rangers, they're before and after the program, they're reading out some statements that ask students to rate their knowledge related to the different learning objectives that I shared. So before and after the classroom lesson, students are participating in a formative and a summative assessment that allows us to gauge how much students learn over the course of that lesson. We also use teacher surveys to gather some feedback on the classroom lesson, and this is really valuable because this feedback is coming from educators who know how students learn best and have some really good ideas for us on how to improve our programs. To get feedback on what students are doing at home, so those challenges in the handbook, we've used caregiver surveys, and we tried to use both electronic and paper versions this year. However, we received little to no responses, which is how I identified the need to conduct some focus groups to better understand the student experience with those handbooks and how we could get some more students to participate in this program. So I'll share more about the journey mapping technique that I used for those focus groups next. Journey mapping is an evaluation method that assesses the participant experience in extended length programs through focus groups. So when I say extended length here, I really mean multi-day, sometimes like weeks or months or even years. For example, I've heard of this technique being used to better understand the experience of students in PhD programs. But here we're talking about a program that's like about a few weeks or months long. Journey mapping can be helpful to use because it is people-centered and participatory. So it's really focusing on the participant experience in these programs and getting feedback directly from them. And it allows students or participants to be engaged in giving this feedback. For example, here I hung posters around the room and put them on different tables and had students move around and add their feedback, something a little bit more engaging and interactive than just filling out a survey. It's also helpful in visualizing and analyzing the participant experience. So on the bottom right here is a graph that I created that helped Clean River Partners visualize which parts of the program we were doing well on and which parts we needed to improve based on that student feedback we got. I got the inspiration for using this technique from attending a GreenCorps training on surveys and evaluation earlier this year. I thought that it seemed like a really interesting technique that I wanted to try, and also something that would be a good fit for what we needed, for how we needed to gather this feedback, which was getting feedback from students in classrooms. And GreenCorps is a really good opportunity to, I saw GreenCorps as a really good opportunity to apply this technique because part of the program is career development. So being able to apply what I've learned in trainings and other professional development opportunities to the work that I'm doing at my host site. And it was also something that my host site would not have had the funds or the staff time likely to do without having me as a GreenCorps member there to help them build their capacity. Another reason I chose to use this technique was because I wanted to boost the number of students who were completing this program. So on the left here is a classroom where out of maybe 20 or 25 students in that class, only one student earned the Clean River Rangers badge. It's the one on the left here. So you can see their classmate is reading the pledge out to them and having them recite it. And you can probably tell from the picture they look a little bit shy. And so it would be really awesome if we could get like more students up there with them earning that badge and make it more of a celebratory, exciting moment. I also wanted to be able to gather feedback directly from students on this program because we got feedback from teachers. We had feedback that I had gathered myself as an educator in the classroom conducting this lesson, but students were one group that we weren't really hearing from, and we wanted to make sure we were understanding their experience in the program. And I wanted to be able to understand the barriers that students were experiencing to participating in this program and how we could address those. So, how could we better motivate them to complete this handbook? That's like an optional activity, that's not something that they have to do as homework. I decided to use this technique in particular to understand these needs because journey mapping is really well suited for kids, given that it can be movement based. So in the picture on the right here, students are getting up, moving around the classroom, adding sticky notes to posters. And it's also a really good way to amplify student voices. So the feedback that I got from the teachers who participated in these focus groups with their students was that students felt really adult and it felt really good to be able to give feedback on a program that they were participating in and to be asked for that feedback and for it to feel heard. The first step that I took in conducting these focus groups was breaking down the participant experience into some chronological steps. So I started with the classroom lesson, and I broke that into the two main activities that students are doing during that lesson. And then with the at-home challenges, I separated that into each of the 8 challenges that students have the option to complete. I included the badge ceremony, but I did not include feedback on the actual pledge that students were reciting. And for some programs, if you're conducting journey mapping, it might be helpful to include steps like registration or orientation. But these are things that teachers were participating in, not so much the students. And I wanted to focus on the students' experience, so I skipped those steps here. For each step, I created a poster that I put around the room and had students add feedback to. So this center image here is an example of that. At the top is one step in the participant experience or one activity that students participated in. So this one in particular is stormwater modeling. And I included a picture here to jog students' memory since I was doing this a few weeks after they had completed the program. And students were asked to rate each step on 2 scales. So on the left here is learning. How much do they learn from this challenge? And on the right is fun. How enjoyable was this? And students were rating this on a scale of 0 to 5. They were also able to leave some more specific feedback on sticky notes on the poster if they had specific things that they liked or wanted us to improve. One thing to note about this feedback is that given that our goal was for 20 out of the around 350 students we reached to actually complete this program, in the classrooms that I visited for focus groups, there were only about like 3 to 5 students per classroom who had actually completed the program. And I chose classrooms for the focus groups intentionally to have a good mix of students who had participated and students who hadn't, so we could understand both of those perspectives because both are helpful. We wanted to understand why it was helpful to, or why students who completed the program liked it and like what they would change about it. And then I also wanted to understand for students who did not complete the program, what could we have done to make it more accessible to them or more interesting so that they would have been more motivated to do it. I also included some open-ended questions here shown on the left and the right to gather some feedback on parts of the program that might not have been captured by those steps that I broke it down into. As I was gathering feedback, I encountered some unexpected challenges and also opportunities. So I conducted focus groups in 2 classrooms in Northfield. And in the first one, I asked students to, instead of writing a number on a poster, to rate how much they like that activity, to use a sticky note and use the placement of it to indicate their rating. So like higher up on the paper would be a higher rating, lower down, closer to the 1 would be a lower rating. However, I very quickly realized that this was not a way to get any sort of accurate quantitative feedback from 4th and 5th graders because it's very hard for them to fit the sticky notes onto the poster itself in any sort of way that leads to accurate data. So from this focus group, I didn't actually get any quantitative data, but I did get a lot of really good feedback from sticky notes that students left and then the debrief of this activity that I led after. And for the next group that I worked with, I had students just write a number on there instead, and that worked a lot better. One unexpected opportunity that I came across was being able to gather some student testimonials. So as I was posting things around the room, I let students know that any poster where the question was written on blue paper, if they put an answer on that one, that we might possibly share their response with other people. So this allowed us to gather some student quotes that we can use for marketing for the program, for creating like flyers or emails that we're going to share with teachers who we're hoping to recruit for Clean River Rangers in the future. The last step that I used to collect data here for the focus groups and analyze it was to compile the data and create this graph to show some strengths and areas for improvement in the participant experience. So each of these posters that students were working on represents one of these sections of the bar graph here. On the x-axis is each of the activities that students were working on. So the two on the left here, runoff and absorption and stormwater modeling, those are the two that I did in the classroom with students during that initial lesson. The one on the right here, badge ceremony, is when I came back in their room to award badges to students who completed the program. And then all of these activities in the middle are things that students were working on at home in their handbook. The blue and the red graphs represent those two questions that students were answering for each activity. So how much did you learn and how much did you enjoy this activity? And the learning being shown in blue and the enjoyment being shown in red. And then that rating they gave from 0 to 5 is on the y-axis here. So this data just represents the one classroom that I conducted a focus group in where I was able to gather some quantitative data. And then as I was analyzing this data together with some other educators from Riverbend Nature Center and Clean River Partners, I was also taking into account the qualitative feedback we got from students and notes from those discussions we had with students during the focus groups. One takeaway from this feedback was that students really liked the classroom activities. And this squared with the feedback that I got from teachers and also just from what I noticed myself in the classroom as an educator. So that was something that we then decided not to prioritize for revising the curriculum since we already were getting good feedback on that part. The thing that we did decide to prioritize was two of the challenges in particular that students were completing at home that got a bit lower ratings. So that was car washing and pet waste. For car washing, the students were asked to go with a trusted adult to take a car to a car wash rather than washing it at home in the driveway. And you can see there's a bit of a gap here between the ratings for learning and fun. So students felt like this was an enjoyable activity, but they didn't learn as much from it. So to focus more on education, the challenge that we came up with for the 2026 to 27 school year will ask students to create a cartoon to explain how washing their car at a car wash rather than in the driveway can help and protect water. So not only will this hopefully increase the amount that students are able to learn from this challenge, but also allow them to tap into their creativity a little bit. And then we used a similar strategy for the pet waste challenge. So this was one that students felt like they didn't learn as much from as other activities, and they also didn't enjoy it as much as other activities. So to work on both of those things, the new and revised version of this challenge will ask students to make a video, create a skit or a TikTok about why it's important to pick up dog poop. So this not only allows kids to use a little bit of their creativity, but it also gives them some choice and autonomy in how they want to complete the challenge and focuses a little bit more on the learning here. Another one of the challenges I want to highlight is right in the middle between these two, wildlife protection. So this is one that students scored really high, which makes sense. Kids love animals and they love learning about animals. And so we decided not to prioritize this challenge, for example, as one that we were going to revise for next year. Oh, the last thing I want to highlight on this slide is the badge ceremony. So you'll probably notice that the learning bar is lower here. And that was something that we are not super worried about because the goal of the badge ceremony is really to celebrate student success and not to focus on learning about stormwater content. So that wasn't something that we chose to revise. And given that my GreenCorps position is 11 months long, and Clean River Partners will have a new GreenCorps member who's leading this programming in the fall. It was really important to make sure that these changes that we made would be written down and sustained. So the way that I've done that is by revising the handbook text that students are going to take home. So there'll be new printed handbooks for the 2026 to 2027 school year that reflect these new and revised challenges. I'll share a little bit more about program outcomes beyond just what we heard from those student focus groups. So in these quotes from students here, you'll see that there's a really good variety in what they enjoyed about the Clean River Rangers program. So some students liked participating in the poster contest because they liked art. Some of them maybe just liked a contest because they have a more competitive side. Some of them just care about the earth and wanted to participate in a program that was helping to protect the planet. And I think that the variety of student comments about what they enjoyed here really speaks to the program's ability to provide some choice in how students want to complete it and draw on different interests that they might have to motivate them to get involved with environmental protection. In terms of more numerical outcomes, we hope to present to at least 350 students, and we ended up engaging with 471. We wanted to present to at least 15 classrooms, and we reached 22. And again, this is all in the city of Northfield because that's where my host site was conducting this programming. And then we were hoping that at least 20 of these students would earn a badge, and 25 of them went on to earn a badge. So the feedback that we got from students and teachers was pretty good, and we were happy that we met our goal for how many students earned a badge. But given that we reached 471 students and only 25 of them earned a badge, we'd really like to get this number up even higher as this program continues to grow and be run for more years. So that was part of the reason that I decided to conduct these focus groups, was to help understand how could we better address the barriers that students are experiencing to completing this handbook and participating in this program. And as my host site runs this program next year with the revised curriculum that we developed, they'll be able to test out those updates to the handbook and see how they affect program outcomes. I'll also share how those student learning objectives that I mentioned earlier were met. So I'll walk us through these graphs here. At the top of each one is the student learning objective. So that's the statement that instructors read out to students before and after the lesson and asked them to rate their knowledge on. So the percentage of students that said, for example, yes, I know what stormwater is and I could explain it to a friend, is reflected on the y-axis of this graph here. And on the x-axis is the year that this data was collected. So it's a comparison between 2024, the first year in the program, and 2025, the second year. There's also data from before the presentation, so shown in blue, this is that pre-assessment, and then after the presentation, that post-assessment is shown in green. Some things that you'll notice about these graphs are that for each of the learning outcomes, students reported increased knowledge. Another thing that I want to point out is that it seems that students are reporting greater familiarity with issues with the river and how to take action than they are with the vocabulary itself. So students have higher numbers here for these bottom two learning outcomes, naming pollution and actions that can help to take stormwater clean, than they do for the vocabulary itself. And so for that reason, I really focused on emphasizing the vocabulary and practicing using it, practicing the words stormwater and runoff during that classroom lesson. Another thing to note about these graphs, and something that's a little bit of a mystery to us, is you'll notice that students are reporting higher knowledge in 2025 than 2024. And this is both like pre and post the classroom lesson that we did. So higher knowledge post lesson, I would guess, is in part due to some curriculum improvements we made between the first and second year that we ran the program, so between 2024 and 2025. However, the why students are reporting higher knowledge on stormwater before we even do the lesson is something that we're not entirely sure why it's happening. It's possible that some of this is due to students who are participating in the program for a second year. So this is a program for 4th and 5th grade students. However, out of the 22 classrooms that we reached in Northfield, only 3 of them were 5th grade classrooms where those students participated in the program the year before. The other 19 classrooms were students who are brand new to Clean River Rangers. And this is because we only ran Clean River Rangers in a limited number of Northfield schools in the first year that we ran the program. So what that means is that this pretty large increase in student knowledge on stormwater can't really entirely be explained by students who are participating in that program for a second year. It's possible that there's a bit of like an effect of the instructor here, right? So I ran the Clean River Rangers program in Northfield in 2025, and a different staff member ran it in 2024. And we may have just used different phrasing as we were explaining the instructions for the pre and post assessments to students that affected how likely they were to answer yes or no. And the third kind of explanation that we've come up with here is that it's possible that some of this increase in stormwater background knowledge in students prior to that lesson is just due to Clean River Partners' continued outreach efforts in Northfield, like students telling their friends and family about what they learned. So that's all I have to share on the Clean River Rangers program. I also want to thank some of the groups that participated in both this program and the evaluation efforts for it. So shown in the picture here are staff at Clean River Partners, and many of the people in this picture either supervised or mentored or supported me in some way during my GreenCorps service here so far. Riverbend Nature Center also delivered this programming and worked together with us on curriculum revisions for next year. And again, the cities of Faribault and Northfield and Owatonna helped to sponsor this program. I also want to thank the teachers and students who led us into their classrooms to not only conduct this programming, but also invited me back a second time to gather some feedback on how we could make this program better. So that would be schools in the Faribault Public Schools District and Northfield Public Schools, as well as Faribault Lutheran School, Divine Mercy Catholic School, and Prairie Creek Community School. And now I'll take any questions that you might have.
Thank you so much, Emma. Wonderful job this morning. I don't see any questions in the chat yet, but of course, folks can feel free to type those in there or unmute if you would like to just ask a question. See, and we have great job. This was so interesting. And also Emma is a great coworker, according to Felicia. So lots of positive feedback. I guess while we are waiting for questions, I was wondering, you mentioned at one point during your presentation that you chatted, or one of the things that you were trying to kind of get from the students is what was keeping them from being interested in the program and kind of not, engaging with it. Do you think there are things that folks can do at home, like with their own kids or, nieces, nephews kind of stuff that can encourage the younger generation to take more of an interest in the environment, given that, the current young generation is kind of growing up with a little bit more tech in their hands and a little less time maybe out in nature?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think my background as an outdoor educator will kind of show through in this answer here, but I think like really taking kids outside and helping them connect with nature is the best way to do that, because you need that appreciation for nature in order to want to protect it and know how to protect it. And that's something that we're trying to accomplish as well through these handbook activities, is like things that get students outside, like cleaning storm drains or picking up trash, things like that.
Were there any commonalities with the students or between the students who did choose to participate in the program that you kind of noticed, even like anecdotally, maybe parents who work in an environmental field or just kind of, a kid who happens to take an interest in that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it seems like probably kids who have more of an interest in this topic already. And I'm really basing that off the fact that one of the classrooms or one of the schools where we saw the most participation was an environmental charter school. So students who are like engaging with these topics more in the classroom, and like their parents are probably putting them in this school because that's something that their families value.
Yeah, that makes sense. All right. Britt asked, how much of this evaluation will you continue next year? Will it be standard to do all of the parts, or will you do a subset of the surveys and focus groups into the future?
Yeah, I think it'll probably depend on like what the GreenCorps member who's serving at my host site next year wants to work on and like has the capacity to work on. Um, my guess would be like for sure gathering feedback from teachers and using some surveys, like things that are pretty low effort on our end and don't require as much staff time will be things that we continue to do. I think like given that this program is newer, it would be helpful to conduct some focus groups, especially since I only did that in 2 classrooms this year and it happened a little bit later in the year than I would have hoped. And like some more time had passed since the program. So I don't think it was quite as fresh in students' minds, just given kind of the steps we had to go through to make this happen. But I think if the GreenCorps member has the time and capacity and desire to do this, I think that would be something that is helpful given that the program is still newer.
Okay, Michael asked, are you considering assessment methods other than surveys or focus groups? Do you have concerns about the kids accurately filling out the survey?
Yeah, one assessment method that we're going to use next year that is a survey but will be a little bit different is having kids as one of the challenges in the handbook. They can fill out a survey like together with a caregiver. So hopefully that'll kind of help with the accuracy piece. Um, so that'll be a way to get feedback from students who have done the program, but it's also helpful to get it from students who haven't done it, which is kind of where the like focus groups or broader surveys come in that aren't tied to a handbook challenge. Um, we haven't considered methods other than surveys or focus groups, but would be certainly open to them if there are ideas. In terms of filling out the survey accurately, yes, I definitely have concerns about it. Like, I think that's part of why kids rated the pet waste challenge lower, for example, was like they thought it was funny to be like, ew, dog poop, yucky. But I also think like they were onto something there. There's probably a reason why not as many kids were choosing to do that challenge because, yeah, it isn't fun to pick up dog poop, and we can come up with something that's more creative and fun and more likely for them to participate in.
Wonderful, thank you. I'm not seeing any more questions in the chat right now. This is the point in every presentation where I try and draw this out because typically once I start to wrap things up, we get another question. So just bear with me while I ramble for a moment. All right. Not seeing anything come up, so I think we can wrap it up a couple minutes early this morning. Emma, thank you so much for joining us. Your presentation was super well done, very interesting, and I think everyone here definitely learned something that they can take back to their own lives. And we just really appreciate you spending your time with us this morning. Everyone, enjoy the rest of this very toasty Thursday.
Yeah, can I speak to the last question in the chat that I see?
Oh, absolutely. Someone snuck one in. See, that's what happens.
Yes, I think games can definitely be a good educational tool if used properly. The one of the activities that we do with fifth graders is kind of presented as more of a game. So fifth graders have a budget that they can use to choose different stormwater best management practices and then see how it affects their imaginary city. And this is something that one student who, after they participated in this presentation, actually created like a scratch simulation on and turned into more of an online game. So yes, it can and is delivered through a game.
Awesome. Great question. I'm glad we had that last one sneak in there. Alrighty. With that, I think we can officially end things. And once again, everybody enjoy the rest of your Thursday. We appreciate your time.